Video, we have to find the radius and the center of each circle, graph each circle, and find the intercepts, if any. Now, I'm only going to graph one circle, okay, but we will find the rest. And this video is going to take a while, right, because there's 4 examples that I want to cover. They're all different, and they all have their complexity. So let's start with the simplest one, x squared plus y squared equal to 4. Now, notice that the standard form of an equation, of a circle, sorry, is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Now, if you have x squared, what does that mean in terms of h? Well, h must be 0. And if you have y squared, well, that means that k is 0. And equal to 4. Therefore, if I want to find the radius, I have r squared equal to 4. Therefore, r equals to the square root of 4, which means that r equals to 2. And that will be the first part. Okay? We put the center and the coordinate is 0, 0. Now, to find the intercepts, to find the intercepts is the same way we always been finding intercepts. First, we plug in 0 for x to find the y-intercepts. So, y-intercept, okay? We plug in 0 for x. So you have 0 squared plus y squared equals 4. Now, that means that y squared equals to 4. That means that y equals plus or minus square root of 4, which is plus or minus 2. And you might ask yourself, well, why did I use plus or minus here and not here for the radius? Well, the reason is that the radius is always positive, so there is never a minus. But for the y-intercepts, there is plus or minus. So the coordinates for these guys is 0, 2 and 0, negative 2. For the x-intercept is exactly the same way, but for y equals 0. So you get x squared plus 0 squared equals 4. That means that x squared equals 4. And that means that x equals plus or minus radical 4, which is plus or minus 2. Therefore, the x-intercepts are 2, 0 and negative 2, 0. And that will be your answer for that problem. Now, for this problem here, okay, you have a 2 in front of the x minus 3 squared and a 2 in front of the y squared. So the first thing I want you to do is to factor the 2. So it's x minus 3 squared plus y squared equals 2a. Now the second step is to divide the 2. So you have divided by 2 on both sides. You're left with x minus 3 squared plus y squared equals to 4. Now let's find the center. Notice that x minus 3, if x minus h is after you take the negative, that means that h is going to be positive 3. And again, there is no value for k, so k is 0. Therefore, the center is 3, 0. The radius, again, r squared equals to 4. That means that r equals to the square root of 4. Therefore, r equals 2. Now, for the y-intercept, we plug in x equals 0. You get 0 minus 3 squared plus y squared equals to 4. Negative 3 squared is positive 9 equals to 4. Y squared equals to 4 minus 9 which is equal to negative 5. Now, can you have a negative square root? The answer is no. Therefore, that means that this circle does not cross the y-intercept. So it has no y-intercepts. Let's do x-intercepts. So again, we plug in y for 0. You get x minus 3 squared plus 0 squared equals 4. That means you have x minus 3 squared equals to 4. Take the square root on both sides. You're left with x minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 4. We meet x minus 3 equals plus or minus 2. We add 3 on both sides. We have plus or minus 2 plus 3. So you're left with x equals to 2 plus 3 or negative 2 plus 3, which is 5 or 1. Therefore, the coordinates are 5, 0 and 1, 0. Those are your x-intercepts for that circle. Going to the next example. Ooh, now things get a little more serious. So brace with me. Notice that now we don't, if there's a 2x and a 4y, that means that this is in general form. Okay? And in order to make it a standard form, we have to complete the square. Yes, everything you've learned from the previous chapter, we have to apply it now. So we need to complete the square. Now, what is the formula to complete the square? Is b over 2 squared. So, who is b for x? Well, let's rewrite it. X squared minus 2x plus y squared minus 4y equals 4. Notice that I added the 4 on the other side and I rewrote it in pairs. So b for x is negative 2 and b for y is negative 4. So for x, I'm going to have negative 2 squared, which is negative 1 squared, which is 1. Therefore, I'm going to add 1 on both sides. So you're left with x squared minus 2x plus 1, and then 4 plus 1. Now for y, you have y squared minus 4y. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but for y. So it's going to be negative 4 over 2 squared. That gives you negative 2 squared, which gives you 4. So I'm going to add 4 on both sides. Now, once you found that number, this completes or factors perfectly into the number you get before squaring b over 2. So in this case is x minus 1 squared plus, and in this case is y minus 2 squared. 4 plus 1 is 5 plus 4 is 9. So now you have it in standard form. Therefore, we can find the center and the radius. The center, remember, is the opposite of the sign. For x is positive 1 and for y is 2. The radius, well, r squared equals 9. Well, that means that r equals the square root of 9, which means r is 3. For the y-intercepts, you plug in 0 for x. Nope. Yes. Sorry. Okay, so we plug in 0 for x, you get 0 minus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equals to 9. 0 minus 1 is negative 1 squared. y minus 2 squared equals to 9. You're left with 1 plus y minus 2 squared equals to 9. You subtract the 1 on both sides, you get y minus 2 squared equals to 9 minus 1. Y minus 2 squared equals to 8. Now we take the square root, you're left with y minus 2 plus or minus radical 8. And we add the 2. You get plus or minus radical 8 plus 2. That means that you have the coordinates for the y-intercept 0, comma, radical 8 plus 2, and 0, comma, negative radical 8 plus 2. That will be your y-intercepts. For the x-intercepts, we plug in y for 0. So you have x minus 1 squared plus 0 minus 2 squared equals to 9. You have x minus 1 squared plus negative 2 squared equals to 9. X minus 1 squared plus 4 equals to 9. We subtract the 4. You have x minus 1 squared equals 9 minus 4. X minus 1 squared equals to 5. We take the square root on both sides. You get x minus 1 plus or minus radical 5. So we add the 1 and we get plus or minus radical 5 plus 1. So your y-intercepts are going to be radical 5 plus 1 comma 0, negative radical 5 plus 1 comma 0. And that will be all for that example. Now we're going to do a very similar procedure for this next example. Now the only difference is now that we have 2's in front of the x squared and the y squared, okay? But the process is very similar. We're just gonna add one more step. So the first thing I want you to do is to reorganize it. So we got 2x squared minus 12x plus 2y squared plus 8y equals 24. Once you reorganize it, I want you to factor a for both x squared and y squared. So 2 times x squared minus 6x, 2 times y squared plus 4y equals 24. Now I want you to factor the 2 out of the equation, completely outside. So you're left with, let me take out the parentheses now because we don't need them. It's going to be x squared minus 6x plus y squared plus 4y equals to 24. And from here, we divide on both sides. So you're left with x squared minus 6x plus y squared plus 4y equals to 12. Now, similar to the previous example, we do the b over 2 squared to complete the square. B here is negative 6 for x and positive 4 for y. So you have, let me write it over here, negative 6 over 2 squared is negative 3 squared, which is 9. So for x, we're going to add 9 on both sides. And for y, we have 4 over 2 squared, which is 2 squared, which is 4. So we're going to add 4 on both sides. Okay, now this factors and this factors into perfect squares. Remember, it's going to be the number that you have here before squaring, so b over 2. So x minus 3 squared Same case with the y, b over 2, which is 2, so y plus 2 squared. Now 9 plus 4 is 13, 13 plus 12 is 25. Now we find the center of the circle. Remember, this h is the opposite of the sign, so it's going to be positive 3. The same thing with k is opposite of the sign, so it's going to be negative 2. And r squared equals 25, which implies that r equals the square root of 25, which is equal to 5. For the y-intercepts. So for the y-intercepts, we plug in 0 for x. So you're left with negative 3 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 25, which implies y plus 2 squared equals 25 minus 9. So you're left with y plus 2 squared equals 16. We take the square root on both sides to get y plus 2 equals plus or minus square root of 16, which implies y plus 2 equals plus or minus 4, which implies that y equals plus or minus 4 minus 2. So for my my y-intercepts, you get 0, comma 4 minus 2, which is 2, and 0, comma negative 4 minus 2, which is negative 6. Now, I don't want to draw on top of the graph, so I'm going to find the x-intercepts over here. So the x-intercepts is when y equals 0. So here you have x minus 3 squared. Is it minus 3? Let's see. Yeah. And then plus 0 plus 2 squared equals 25. Wait a minute, 25 minus 9. Let me see, give me 1 second. I think 25 minus 9 is 16. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Solid. Okay. So x minus 3 squared plus 2 squared, which is 4, is 25. We subtract the 4 on both sides. X minus 3 squared equals 25 minus 4, which is 21. We take the square root on both sides. We get x equals plus or minus radical 21. So we add the 3. We get plus or minus radical 21 plus 3. So your x-intercepts are radical 21 plus 3, comma 0, and negative radical 21 plus 3, comma 0. For this one, I am going to graph this circle. So the center is 3, negative 2. 3, negative 2 is right here. The radius is 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice that for the y-intercepts, it crosses at 2 and negative 6. So we got that beautiful circle of mine. Okay? And that will be your graph. And that will be all for this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below or ask me in class. Thank you.